In the next 5 to 6 years, your consumer is going to be the Greta Thunbergs of the world. It's going to be your kids. It's going to be my kids. So are you ready to sell to this new generation of consumers? Because they're not going to accept any greenwash. Our kids come home from school and say that we can't light crackers because it gives us a cough. This is your future consumer. So if you want to be around as a brand in the next 5-7 years, you've got to be sustainable.
When Rhea Mazumdar Singhal set up Ecoware, India's first sustainable packaging solutions company, she was gearing up for a big task. She brought Ecoware as a market disruptor, offering natural products for both individuals and companies to help reduce their eco-footprint. In 2019, she was awarded the Nari Shakti Puraskar by the Indian government for pioneering the sustainable food packaging industry. As we're still trying to figure how our lives and economies are going to take shape in a post-COVID world, Rhea believes the only way forward for companies is to genuinely focus their effort on their environment.
I have read so much about what got you into pharmacology and, eventually the kind of line you're doing right now. But there's absolutely no information about where you grew up and what you did before that.
Fair point. It's a good place to start. So I was born in Bombay when it was still Bombay. And when I was about 2 years old, my parents moved to the United Arab Emirates.
Okay.
And so they're based in Dubai. My family is still very much there. And I grew up predominantly in Dubai. And when I was about 16 years old, I left for boarding school for the UK.
Okay.
And I finished the last 2 years of school there. I went on to university. I worked there. I met my husband there. And then after that, I moved to Delhi.
Okay. And you were saying about how when you were 19, your mom was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Yes.
So obviously, you felt the need to study more about, you got into oncology and you started working for Pfizer. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that I've always been driven by science. And, I think since I was probably in the third grade, I wanted to be a doctor. And when it actually came down to filling out my university application forms, I was not so sure. And I think medicine, from studying it to practicing it, requires so much commitment that even if you have a fraction of hesitance, I don't think, at least that was my thinking, that I didn't think something I should pursue.
I agree.
So my parents have always been super supportive, and they kind of suggested pharmacology because that meant that I could still study the science that I, wanted to know about and I was curious about, but also allowed me to apply myself in different areas of an organization, which is precisely what I went on to do. I studied pharmacology. And then I worked for the big pharma giant. I did various things from medical sales to product launches. I worked on smoking cessation drugs. I then ended up on oncology. So I got to kind of work across various portfolios.
Okay.
So, and that was really what I wanted to do. And it was something that an environment that I thrived in. So I was pretty happy.
And when you shifted to India, to Delhi, and you saw the rampant use of, single-use plastics,
Mm-hmm.
When did you actually sit down and think, okay, I'm going to do something about this?
So I moved to India in Jan 2009, and I registered my company in May 2009. So
that was quick.
That was pretty quick. And that also moving, finding a house, settling in, learning to navigate myself around the city, because I had no idea. I'd never lived in India, and definitely
okay.
I had no idea of Delhi. So it was a brand new learning experience. Like I had no sense of direction. I didn't know where anything was. So it was a very, very steep learning curve.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it's just from when you start living here, like I was surprised that we threw all our waste in one dustbin, which was something that I wasn't used to. The littering and the way, just the lack of civic sense of using a dustbin or was always disturbing. Like every time we visited, we visited very often. Like I just didn't think that it was right. So yeah, I think, when I started living here, I suppose I saw more of it.
Okay.
And it was just that it played on my mind more. So it was very quick from moving to starting Ecoware.
You didn't have any hesitation at all?
So, very honestly, I did think that I would, I explored the pharma world, and I was pretty much told that because I didn't have an MBA, I would not be offered a job. And I never understood that, because for what I was doing in the UK, I didn't have an MBA, and I was, my track record spoke for itself. Like I, won the awards, got the rewards, all that sort of stuff. So I never thought it was something I needed to do. Like I didn't need those 3 letters, because I was doing the job anyway, right?
Yeah.
So I was a little put off, and I thought, okay, I'm not really interested if that's going to be, the working culture, because I don't think there was ever interest in what I had to offer, or what I had achieved, or my learnings, or how that could be a value addition. It was just a cutoff, like, you don't have an MBA, okay, no, sorry, we're not even gonna look at your CV. And
okay.
And I having worked, I suppose, in the UK, and in at least for me, was an amazing environment. It was very supportive. It was all about learning. You thrive, you grow within an organization. It was a very negative sort of feeling when I moved here. And it was something that I anyway decided that, okay, I'm not going to do it. But funnily enough, the day I registered the company, I got a phone call from GlaxoSmithKline saying, there's a job if you want it. And I think that was my only momentary hesitance, where I thought, is this, should I go back to what I know? And I was talking to my husband and one of my closest friends at the time, and they were just like, no, you're 27, and if you want to do this, this is the time to do it. Like it was just, we didn't have kids, and I suppose like a lot of financial responsibility, and
right.
It was a good time to take a risk if we wanted to. So I said, okay, forget pharma. This is I want to try something different, and I did.
Okay. I actually thought you were 29 when you started the company. I didn't realize you were much younger.
No, this was I'm 82 born, and this was 2009. So
okay.
That's 27. Yeah.
All right. So you registered your company and you decided to go for it. So where do you begin? Like, were you confused or overwhelmed? Where do you start?
No, so like I said, I'd done brand launches at Pfizer. I had some sort of idea how to get a brand to market.
Okay.
Getting a brand to market was the easy part for me. Creating the physical product, I suppose, was my experience, right? So I think for me, the market research was fairly simple. It was like, okay, I went into the market. I went into wholesalers, retailers, the Chandni Chowks of Delhi. I understood what sold well, shapes, sizes. I didn't want to, recreate the entire universe. Right. So I picked 5 things that I was going to start with. I understood price points.
And this was when you didn't understand Hindi that much.
I'm not going to lie. My Hindi was not great. So for me, just growing up, my grandfather was a lyricist. He wrote all of Raj Kapoor's music. So I come from a lineage where, my grandfather wrote "Main Avara Hoon" and "Mera Joota Hai Japani" and like all this sort of music. And
that's interesting.
Yeah. So I learned Hindi, and I can read and write. I learned how to read and write it. Obviously conversation was one thing. But speaking or thinking in the language every day was not something that I was used to, right? From negotiating or running a factory. And so that was learning for me. And I think that's just come with practice. But I still probably don't know all my numbers. So, but now I'm not even ashamed to say it. Like someone will throw a number at me and I'm like, okay, and that is what? So,
Yes, I totally agree. I actually lived in Delhi for a year, and
okay,
I'm a South Indian, so I had very basic
right.
knowledge of Hindi. And I remember arguing with the auto driver. He asked for pachis, which is 25, and I thought it meant 50. I was like, no, 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 I'm giving you only 25. And he was like, has this woman gone mad? But anyways, yeah, I get that confusion.
Yeah, it's very easily done. So I sympathize.
Yeah.
And I think that, so like I said, that was kind of, and I think also I was at I was lucky because there were a lot of sort of people our age entering the food markets, right? The
Yeah.
restaurant business, trying to create deliveries and doing different things. So it was nice I had the opportunity to engage with like-minded people and who are willing to be open and let me try in their kitchens and give sort of, and we're open-minded to more sustainable solutions. So I think that was really helpful. On the actual product development side, my father-in-law is from IIT Kanpur. He's been in the sugar industry for over 35 years, and he is. I keep joking that he's my tech support. I mean, he's got this immense amount of knowledge to do with just from being an entrepreneur in this country to anything technical that I want to do to sustainable technology. And it's so he's been sort of my backbone as far as that's concerned.
Okay.
And so he kind of we said okay, he's the one that basically helped me get my factory up and running. We did all our I ran past him all our sort of options on machines, what we want to do, and just because for me, like I said, I knew that this is the product I wanted to make and this is the market I wanted to get into, and I needed the help of the back end, and he supported me.
So, was there a lot of testing done initially with the products, and what was the feedback like?
The feedback was positive. I tested, so I registered the company in May 2009. I probably decided by September that year, 2009, that we were going to set up a production unit, and this had a in India, and then we commissioned our first unit in March 2010.
Okay.
So it was very quick going, and we had done a little bit of research. We did extensive amount of product testing. So we got shapes, sizes, from cups to takeaway containers to what it is we thought would work well in the market. And I think a great launch pad for the company in 2010 was the fact that the Commonwealth Games happened in Delhi, and it was the Green Games. So we supplied the entire village as well as all the stadiums. And, we got to work with the likes of the rail, IRCTC, TART-SAT, like all the big guys. And we realized that, okay, this is something that we could obviously do. We've handled such a big event. We've handled, big clients. And so then as soon as CWG was over, we kind of just hit the ground running, built just an extensive distribution network across the country, started identifying quick service restaurants that we could work with. So for instance, Haldiram's has been one of our anchor customers since 2011. They've been at the forefront to say that, okay, we're not going to use plastic. We want to use something better. And I think that's fantastic. So we started identifying different sort of customer segments that we could work with, and we've just grown ever since and never looked back.
Okay. Did you face a lot of pushback in the initial days? Like 10 years back, it was quite new, and people wouldn't readily take to it.
None of our stakeholders understood what it meant for a product to be biodegradable, right? Or compostable. There were industry standards. You hadn't seen such a product before. I was a 27-year-old with not great Hindi trying to convince people that this is the future, guys. And then trying to sit in Chandni Chowk and with all these wholesalers to tell them that, you've got to ditch what you've been selling. And what for all these years, right? And I'm going to give you something else that's going to make you earn more, and that is the future. So of course, there was a lot of pushback. But the thing is that we identified pockets.
Okay.
Right. Like I said, it was a very targeted approach. I would never try to take over the universe. It was like, okay, let's work with one, people who realize, two, people who want, three, there's a price point acceptability. There's a similar sort of like-mindedness in terms of thought and what you want, and innovation, what you want to do, right, with your brand. And so we started working with those sort of customers. We also in parallel did a lot of work to create awareness. We did a lot of education drives. I've worked with sort of, from schools to cancer support groups. So we had multiple things sort of happening simultaneously, and that's how we've kind of built the amount of demand there is in the market at the moment, because that has only come because now people are aware. Right. So there was, to answer your question, there was a lot of pushback. There was this guy, one of my very simple, famous stories is there was a supermarket in Gurgaon, and, in Gurgaon, the demographic is slightly different, right? You've got professionals, and their needs and what their shopping trends and how they buy is also slightly different. So there was a supermarket that I thought, it wasn't premium, but it wasn't your kirana dukan.
Okay.
And I thought that this would be a good place to place a product like ours, right? Because you've got the right kind of footfall, the price point, all that sort of stuff. And this guy was like, "Madam, ye kabhi nahi chalega." So I said, "Okay, fine, kabhi nahi chalega." And he's still today one of our customers.
Oh, that's nice. But how did you deal with that rejection? I mean, what was your frame of mind? Did you feel like really dejected? Or?
No, not really. I've worked medical sales to get access to a doctor to see you.
I know, yeah.
If you've sold in the pharma world, I think you're one of the best trained salespeople out there. And I really believe that, because I was taught that there's never anything like a no-see customer. You will get in there. You've just got to align yourself, and you've got to find what makes your consumer or customer tick, and then you can actually address a need, basically. So I think I've come from that space, so I wasn't dejected like that easily.
That's nice. That's a great way of looking at things. So your biggest customer is one of the biggest customers is the Indian Railways. How hard was it? How did that happen? Was it hard to convince them to come on board, or they were happy to?
Well, so I think, our relationship, like I said, with IRCTC goes back all the way to the Commonwealth Games, right? So it's a relationship we formed in 2010. And I think it was only maybe about 2 years ago that we went back to them and we said, and also in between, I think there was a lot of IRCTC used to do the catering, then it went back to the railways, then it went back to IRCTC. So there was all this shift about who was actually doing the food for the railways. So once it actually went back to IRCTC, we said that, guys, this is something that we want to do, and you've talked about being environmentally friendly and green, and that's what the government is advocating and the ministry is advocating. So let's help you figure this out. And they were really open-minded. They had used a product like ours. They wanted, and I think also, let's be honest, the railways didn't always have the best reputation with their food, right? And their handling of food.
True.
So I think they also wanted to create a better experience for the passenger. So we, having worked with them before, there was obviously an element of trust. And we just built on that. And, we said, and we were absolutely thorough with what we did. It was a good long, I think almost like 10, 12 months R&D process. From working in their kitchens to understanding the portions they serve, what they serve, how, and the actual handling, right? Because to handle the person who's handling today might not be handling tomorrow, and it's very different across the country. So to understand operationally how they work, from actually filling that tray to serving the passenger, was something that we had to learn. We developed a product according to that, and if I'm not mistaken, they even did a survey on passengers, to understand whether they preferred it or how they liked it, and they had really good positive feedback, which obviously pleased them and us, and and we kind of just started doing more and more for them.
Okay. You set up, like you said, your first facility in 2010, and now you have 2 facilities, right?
No, actually, we consolidated everything to one.
Oh, okay.
So the facility we built later was a much larger facility, and we kind of just brought everything closer, because the first one was out in Silikwe in Dehradun, and we chose that area because the government was basically offering like tax benefits, trying to promote. And I think that we just wanted something closer to us, being based in Delhi. And so we decided to build something closer here.
Okay. Did you think about outsourcing the production, instead of building it from the ground up, considering there's more capital that's going to be, it's going to take up?
No, I didn't, because this is not we're the first people in the country to do this, right? This isn't like I'm contracting someone to make shampoo or oil or, just something that's been around for ages.
Okay.
So the entire skilling, what we were making, how we were making, was our know-how. And that's something that we obviously take a lot of pride in. Moving forward, is contract manufacturing something that we can look at possibly as we get bigger? Yeah. But to start with, no, we did everything in-house, and we did everything ourselves. And because I was also very clear that there's truth and authenticity behind what we're making and how we're making. And I wanted to make sure that was very much present. Like there was no compromise in any way, in terms of manufacturing, or in the end product.
Okay. You had, I think, put in 2 crores investment when you started.
I don't know. Like 11 years old now. But
yeah. Yes, 2 crores. I'm just looking at my notes. And
maybe I was putting so much thereafter that I don't even remember now.
So, and you had mentioned that you broke even around 2016, 2017.
Yeah.
I mean, that is quite a long time. Did it ever feel like for you, to always have to be kind of prove what the company was to break even for so long? Or, did you feel like little impatient about it?
No, because don't forget that, from when we started to when we actually sort of expanded, right? We expanded 4-fold.
Okay.
That's a big jump. Okay, so it would be unreasonable for me to think that I could break even, I'm not
not immediately.
So I was realistic, and I think that, we had a target and we met that target, and we are, it is important for me for our numbers, to make sense and add up, because I love what we do, and I wish more people would take things like a circular economy and sustainability seriously. And when I showcase, when we talk about Ecoware as an organization, it is look, you can be sustainable and profitable at the same time. It's not one or the other. And you can create impact as well, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think when you're looking to be taken seriously, your numbers have to make sense. So, to answer your question, was I impatient? Not really. I was probably getting there towards the end, and but like I said, coming from a sales background, we're very numbers driven, and it's great that my team are on board with that. But we had a target, we met it, and in between, like I said, we did grow 4-fold. So we went, like, for instance, from a 20 people team, maybe doing what was it, so a 20 people team doing about maybe 10 lakh pieces a year, to 120 people team doing over 50 million pieces a year.
Yeah.
So that was the kind of like growth that we, had achieved in between. But yeah.
Okay. When you look back, what do you think has been your biggest struggle of failure, and what did you learn from it?
God, so I was, I read this question. I was thinking about it. I was like, oh, so many failures. Like, what's my biggest one?
Or what do you think were the most, what taught you the most?
I think that, growing, I mean, ever since I was a kid, I was the kid that was always told you can do better. All my teachers and my parents were tired of hearing it, right? From school to college to whatever, it was always like, oh, but she can do better. And so I think when you're a student and you're studying, you're like, oh, I could have done better, I could have done this, and maybe your grades didn't add up. So I think the point is that I'm trying to make is that I think there've been a lot of obstacles. I have overcome them, and I do give myself credit that I am fairly resilient. And I think failure only happens when you don't learn, right?
Right.
And I think as long as you're learning, and as long as you've just moved forward from that situation, so that if you ever had to face it again, that you dealt with it better. I don't deem it as a failure. But the struggles are real. I can tell you as an entrepreneur, there are plenty of times where I've just wanted to break down and cry in frustration. I've just been like, hang on, I don't even have the time. Like, let's be serious. I have 120 people I'm responsible for.
Yeah.
Kids at home. I have my skin in the game. Let's be real about this. So the struggles are every day. And I can tell you also that the struggles are, every day, like something happens one day and you're like, oh my God, this is insane. You're like, I don't think I'd have a worse day, but hang on, you can. 5 days later, something else like just knocks the wind out of you. And you're like, oh, I did not see that coming. I've never experienced this before. Now, how do I manage this? So I think resilience takes you a long way, and I think just as an individual, I've always been very determined not to give up.
Okay.
I left home when I was 16. I went to boarding school on my own. University, I lived in the UK alone, met my husband, told my parents, this is who I'm getting married to, decided I'm going to quit my job and move to India. And I've kind of just done all these things that I have just where you've embraced challenges. And I suppose I've always pushed myself outside my comfort zone.
Okay.
What more can I do? So I think it's part and parcel of evolving and as a person as well. So yeah, I mean,
okay.
I can't pick on one big thing. Was it challenging to move to a country I knew nothing about, having grown up in the West? Sure. Have I ever, have I ever run a manufacturing facility? No, I haven't. Have I, do I know how to, no textbook, right? Will teach you, textbook can teach you how to launch a brand, can teach you how to, figure out your accounts, P&L. Nothing will ever teach you how to manage Indian labor.
That's true.
Right? That's an everyday learning experience. And, so like I said, I don't deem that these little things as failures. Like I'm constantly learning. And I think that's what you have to be open-minded about.
Okay. But on the days that you feel like drowning, I want to know how do you center yourself? Are there any techniques that you use? Do you do meditation, or, just ground yourself and think, okay, focus on the present?
So I think that, and this goes back, I think, to my Pfizer days, because I think when you work for a big MNC, one thing that you have to brace yourself for is change is the only constant thing, right?
True.
So whether you be structured, you will move to someone else's team, suddenly your portfolio change, you had no control over stuff like that, right? So I was always taught that you should always focus on what you can control. And that's something that I hold to heart till today. So, I mean, look at this COVID scenario, right? I am suddenly working from home. I am homeschooling my children. I am still an entrepreneur. I'm still cooking. I suddenly have like 5 full-time roles, and I don't have like a fraction, of a moment to myself. And you're just like, God, if this isn't overwhelming, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's similar for you, right? Because
Yeah.
you've got kids as well. And I think that um, I think I exercise every day, so that's sacred to me.
That's great. You making time for that.
40 minutes, 45 minutes every day, and I think my entire household now knows, including the dogs, that if they come next to me in that 45 minutes, someone is going to get jocked very badly because that is just my time. So I think exercise is important. I try and distance myself from the situation. So if it's, just reading a book with my kids,
Okay.
my exercise, or this weekend I started coloring because a friend of mine said you should try it. It is actually very therapeutic. And so I've been doing that, and it's, and I think once you sort of emotionally disengage from that situation, you're able to maybe think a little clearer. So they're all small coping mechanisms I think everyone finds in their day.
Okay.
So yeah, it's nothing extraordinary. I haven't done anything, out of the blue. But I think exercise has probably been the most consistent part of my life, through and through. It's just, even when I was pregnant with my kids or after them, if it was just going for a walk or just something to kind of remove yourself and for a little while. But yeah.
Your husband joined you on board with Ecoware. So what is that like, husband and wife partnership? Is there a lot of arguments that get, brought back home?
No, not anymore.
Okay.
I'll be very honest. We've been at this for some time now. And I think at the start, like with anything, you're probably just trying to find your feet and create those boundaries. But I think we've done a really good job. Once we are home, we are only about our children and the house. We don't talk about work at home. And my husband's very good about it. I think I probably sometimes slip into like, oh, but we've got this tomorrow, and oh, you've got that call, and so I think that creating those boundaries is very important. When we're at work, we're at work. We're at home, we're at home. The weekends is just about being at home and being with our kids. I think, and I always say this, yes, we might have constructive conflict. I think, the end goal for the company, the vision, what we want to create is the same. We are very much aligned.
Okay.
We might not, agree on the exact path on how to get there. But, the point is that we want to get there. And it's never been, we've never been disengaged in that sense. Like I said, it's always, I think he's an ex-investment banker.
Okay.
He's very data driven. I am, the customer facing salesperson. And I like that side of things. Whereas he obviously, he needs his data, and I'm just like, guys, just give me, don't. I call it death by Excel, right? Or PowerPoint. I'm like, give me just 4 things I need as key points, and let me just go do what I want to do. So yeah, it's great. Like, and I think it works, and we've made it work, and we continue to do so.
If I may ask, because I'm curious, as you're the boss of the company.
No.
As in, at least you started it and you're like, spearheading it.
My husband will say, yeah, of course she is. And I'm just like, no, I'm not.
Does that play with the dynamics of your relationship? Does it make it feel awkward at any point? The usual complaint is if the woman is the boss, then,
Not at all, because I know that there are things that he's good at. There's things that I'm good at, and we both bring value to the table. I know that there are decisions that there are any decisions that we will not make without one another, because you actually value what the other person has to bring, right? So it's never sort of a boss subordinate kind of role. I don't have all the answers, and I know that he feels the same way. And as a team, we feel more empowered, to drive the company in the right direction, as opposed to as an individual.
Okay. So, how did you feel when you heard about getting the Nari Shakti Puraskar award? I hope I'm pronouncing it right.
Yes, I honestly couldn't believe it.
How did you get the information?
So I got a phone call from the ministry, and they said, "Ma'am, you are being honored," and I was just like, "I'm sorry, what?" um, so they had actually come to visit the factory. They had come to speak. Someone from the ministry had come, and they had come to speak to the women employees and things like that. And so, I mean, I kind of knew it was being considered, but I didn't ever believe that it was going to happen. You always feel that there are other people out there doing more, doing bigger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And obviously I was absolutely over the moon. It is, being an entrepreneur isn't easy. It can be the loneliest thing possible, and to self-drive and self-motivate and, like I said, chip away consistently at something, because you really believe in it for a 10-year period. I think it really takes a lot. And then at the end of those 10 years, to be recognized, by the president and the nation, is just like the best thing possible, obviously.
Yeah.
I think even up to the ceremony, I just thought I was going to trip on my sari and fall flat on the red carpet or something. I don't think it really, there was just so much emotion, and there was, I honestly couldn't believe it. But the next day we were invited to Racecourse Road, and we got to meet the Prime Minister, and the Honorable Maneka Gandhi had some time to interact with us. And I think the deepest sort of, the bit that was meant the most to me was when she said that, she was very straightforward, which she is. And she said that, this is not for what you've done, this is for what you can do. So let's just be very clear about that. And that was my alarm bells. That was my aha moment. I was like, right, okay. I'm going to leave Racecourse Road and do more now. So
that actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, which I thought was amazing. It wasn't just a pat on the back, here you go. She was very clear. She's like, we've recognized for what you've done. Now we want you to do more, and you need to make sure you do that. And that was the most motivating, that was honestly the most memorable, it sounds silly to say that, but meaningful, memorable part of the entire experience.
Okay. I want to talk about the current, obviously the Delhi pollution during the harvest season. And you, yeah, I know. And I know you initially started with, sugarcane byproduct to use for your products, but now you started with paddy straws as well.
We are working with incubators to see how much a paddy straw we can use as our raw material.
Okay. So, I mean, what is it like? When you talk to the farmers, what is the situation? Do you think there can be an improvement in this?
I haven't worked directly with the farmer. I work with the aggregators.
Okay.
Because there's I think the challenge is aggregation is a whole different business, right? So I'm not big enough to work directly with the farmer. My thing is that, okay, let me see if I can find a solution, if I can use this and create a solution, basically, right?
Okay.
So we work with aggregators. We work with people who actually collect the raw material, because there's just so much of it. And I think aggregation is a challenge.
Yeah.
Whoever you speak to, any entrepreneur out there who's trying to work with paddy straw and find a solution, they will all tell you that aggregation is a challenge.
So do you see a solution to it?
Yes, I work with CII, the Confederation of Indian Industry, and we do a lot on clean air and the CEO forum. And just the last 3 months, we've been doing various webinars on ex situ solutions and in situ solutions and stuff. And it's amazing how many entrepreneurs are out there trying to create solutions for these farmers. And, hats off to all of them, because they're literally all like, our age. Everyone is young, dynamic, and trying to find a solution. And I think that's, that there's something absolutely empowering and amazing about that. Now, whether you are working directly with the farmer and you're trying to provide like agricultural tools to help clear land, or if you are, trying to use this as a raw material, it's amazing that some 30-odd-year-olds trying to find solutions, getting their bank loans, being those empowering entrepreneurs, and they're the ones that are trying to make a difference. And I think that there's so many people out there that are doing great things, that we're bound to find solutions for this. I think in the interim, though, what would be good to see from a governance perspective is that we have a lot more awareness, right? From, I can tell you as a parent, I fear sending my kids to school at that time of year.
Yeah. I have a lot of friends in Delhi who have that, problem.
I don't think it's great. I don't think it's safe. I don't think it's right. And I think that every year we have this, this band-aid, sort of like this knee-jerk approach to it, right? Like, so 2 weeks before, everyone wakes up and goes, oh, this is our grappa plan, this is this is that, la, la, la. And then, like, it just dies. I mean, no one's paying attention to it. And it becomes this momentary, like, oh my God, the media's covering it, everyone's talking about it. Have you recognized anyone who is working on this? Like, how are you supporting businesses working on this? Even all our relief packages that were just announced, like, why is there not even an extra, like, ounce of stimulus for someone that is contributing to a cause like this, right?
Yeah.
Doing something better with it. You need to recognize and help scale these solutions, because all the entrepreneurs I've talked about, that's what they're struggling with.
Okay.
So, and that comes from the private sector, that comes from government. And, so I think till we get these large scale solutions to market, we need to find better ways of coping, be it whether we're in schools, our offices, our cars, how, there should be like health norms that that not are created, but I suppose that people are aware, that citizens of the city are aware of, what's right, what's wrong, how you can help if you're contributing, like what is it you should do to stay safe, to keep your family safe, things like that.
Okay. I came across a very interesting article about where Al Gore, who's been always in the forefront of sustainability and climate change and all. So he says how with this pandemic, people have gone back to using single one-time use, and whether it's masks or anything else, and then throw it away. But he actually believes there's going to be a major sustainability revolution that's going to happen. And this pandemic is actually accelerating it. Mm-hmm. And one of the things he says is, there should be more investment in such firms. And also at the same time, for other companies where people are looking at investing in other companies, they have to look at the ESG part of it, the environmental and social and governance part. So I want to know, for you, who's running a sustainable company that's in this field, is it hard with the investors getting in the, people to...
Like that alien struggle question? No, I'm only joking. Yes, extremely hard. It is extremely hard. Investment in India, and I might be shooting myself in the foot by saying this, is probably like a herd mentality. I don't think anyone... I think as a woman entrepreneur, it is hard to find investment. And I say this because I've gone out and I've done this exercise, and I was honestly just very disheartened. And also ultimately I realized that I didn't want to dilute my company to somebody who did not understand what I was doing.
Yeah.
I'm very clear about that. And there is no understanding of what I'm doing in India. If I
Still, you think there is people are.
There isn't, and it's quite sad. I mean, I really believe in innovation, right? I mean, think of someone like Uber. Did you ever think before, you know, stop a taxi? You just waved your hand, right? You didn't think you
Yeah.
need an app to call a cab, right?
Yeah.
So to change that behavior, to create a solution to a problem you didn't even think you had. That is something. And that's something I really believe that we're doing here. I am not the next food delivery app. I am not the next food delivery. Okay. I'm doing something completely off grid. And no one has been able to, see the sense in that here. We've spoken to plenty of, after we got the contract with the railways, is a time where we really felt we needed to scale. And
Okay.
I spent about 6 months. Like I said, my husband comes from a banking background and he was very keen. So I said, okay. We spent 6 months talking to investors. We actually engaged with a firm to help find investors. And 6 months in, I said, I'm done. I don't, no one understands, and I'm not doing this anymore. Because I don't need to be driven down by somebody who has no clue of what I'm trying to achieve. So what was great was we went to a local bank.
Okay.
And, the head of the bank was a woman. She completely bought into what I was doing. She said, okay, how do you need me to help? We raised a line of debt, we grew, and we've never looked back. Today we are in a great position.
Okay.
So it's basically that. And I think that investment is very hard if you're doing something different. ESG is important. It's about time you start measuring impact. And Al Gore is right. I had the opportunity to meet him, I think 2 years ago now. And
that's nice.
Yeah, and it's amazing what he's done with climate reality, the awareness that he's trying to create. And because everything you do must create impact, whether it is social, whether it is environmental, whether it is governance, right?
Yeah.
There's no point of doing it otherwise. That means you're just not innovating enough.
Yeah.
And and I think that as we move forward, even I say this to all business owners, whether you're large, medium, small, whatever. If you think climate change is not going to affect you, you are completely wrong. Extreme weather patterns will affect your output, no doubt. We see that in India, right? I have a factory out in in UP, and I can tell you in the month of May it is hot.
Yeah.
Right? You can try and evade this, but not for long. Okay? And also, ultimately, your consumer is changing. In the next 5 to 6 years, your consumer is going to be the Greta Thunbergs of the world. It's going to be your kids. It's going to be my kids. Now, are you ready to sell to this new generation of consumers? Because they're not going to accept any greenwash. Right? You can, our kids come home from school and say that we can't light crackers because it gives us a cough. We can't eat fish because it has plastics in it. I mean, this is your future consumer. So if you want to be around as a brand in the next 5-7 years, you've got to be sustainable. And if you want a return on investment as an investor, and you want this, you've got to look at ESG parameters. You've got to measure impact in your investment.
So you feel there's more awareness now due to this pandemic? People are going to realize there is a relation between a company and its impact on the environment.
So I think the pandemic has definitely driven more advocacy to use single use, because everyone's really worried for cross-infection. I think that, in 2020, do you really want to be the brand that's using single-use plastic? I mean, I think the world has gained a lot of momentum in the last 2 years on the harmful effects of plastic. There's been a lot of coverage from Blue Planet to, media, to entrepreneurs, to whatever it is. Now, whether, like I said, do you really want to be that brand? So there is definitely a lot of awareness from a consumer end. There is a lot of as a community also, there is a lot of drive to kind of get your local restaurants, businesses, to behave differently. There is a lot of people using their businesses to create that platform for change. You've got the ability to basically change consumer behavior from rampant consumerism to more conscious consumerism. We are definitely seeing more of that. Yeah, I mean, you're right. There is suddenly the spike in single use. And I think that we still need to keep our education and awareness drive going, right? So would you do, if you're using a disposable mask, please use a cloth mask that you've made. You made it at home, you washed it, to reuse basically as much as possible. So I think those messages are still required, though. It's not that, okay, we're doing a great job, pat on the back, job done kind of thing. We're nowhere near it.
Yeah. So where do you see Ecoware going forward?
So I think that, for us, we've got very strong roots in the F&B sector, which is where we've been working the last 10 years. So I wish to scale that globally now. And that's something that, we're constantly working on. Having done F&B really well, I want to support other industries in reducing their single-use footprint, plastic footprint. So, e-commerce, medical, industrial packaging, we're really happy to innovate and just, wherever someone wants to do something different, basically. We're looking at also different types of feedstock. Like I said, we are a biomass-rich nation. We started off in bagasse. What else can we use? What more can we use? And, I think also it's like with all of this scale, I'm very clear that I want to obviously keep scaling our impact. So we've got the environmental impact, the health impact, and obviously, most importantly, the social impact. Like we want to create more jobs. We want to empower more women. Something that's very close to my heart is having more women in manufacturing, because I don't see why we don't have that. And I think it's we've got a lot of talent. We've got a lot of brain power, and ultimately any nation's success depends on how many women you have in the workforce. So we get, and that's something that I personally work on. So in our manufacturing facility. So that's, for me, those are the three key areas.
Okay, great. So are you looking to scale up to sell more products? Because you said the demand often outdoes the supply.
We're constantly looking at selling, scaling up to sell more product. Like I said, in the F&B sector, we've made, very deep strides. So if we can do that globally, then yeah, we definitely want to get more product out there.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Rhea. I had a great time talking to you.
Thank you. It was great.
And I really appreciate you taking the time out, because I know as a working mom and, being an entrepreneur and everything, it's things must be really crazy for you at the moment.
No, the same with you. You're working, you've got your kids. We all do what we've got to do. So, and it's nice to kind of take the time out with, a woman in a similar situation or a similar boat to kind of just take that 1 hour off to have a chat, basically.
I'm just doing the podcast. You're running a business, so I'm sure for you things are much more complicated.
You still got to do your research. You found me.
Yeah.
And you've got vision for who you want to feature in your podcast and your listeners and what the messages that you want to get out there. So that's your drive, right?
Yeah, it is. But thanks again.
Hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Until next week, take care. And don't forget to subscribe to us.